All right. Hello. Hopefully the music stopped. Let's double check. I'm trying out some new things. I was just I had the extra time, so I wanted to see what StreamYard was doing. All right, so I think the music stopped. I don't have YouTube up, so hopefully everything sounds good. Everything looks okay. Yeah, my hair kind of is a little sticking out like that. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Actually, I thought it was going to be cooler in my apartment today, but it's kind of warm. So I pulled my hair back so I won't have to deal with it. And I forgot to turn on the dehumidifier. That would cool things down. But I think this is going to be a short stream. So welcome. So yes, we're streaming Sunday tonight. The professor had a pretty big schedule change this week. We usually have our date night on Sunday nights, but he couldn't. He had his daughter for 2 extra days, and so he just got back from traveling with her and carrying her off to her mother. So he's relaxing, and I thought, why don't we just have our date night Monday nights, or at least this Monday? So in lieu of our Monday night stream, we will have a previous day stream, Sunday stream. So happy Sunday. It is Sunday. It's Sunday night. Hopefully you guys are doing well. I did a couple new arrangements. I added a little curtain in the back. I've had that curtain actually sitting behind that bureau for like a year. It was a Christmas present. So I hope you like the red. It's turning out darker than I thought it would, which is good. I wanted the dark red color. And then we have over on this side, the beautiful portrait of me and the prof in our pixelated forms with my sound engraver R2D2 outfit. And of course, my prof with his sweater and his mask, his blue mask. So I hope you guys are having a terrific weekend. Just go ahead and see if everything's good with our signal, if audio looks good, if the video looks good. We just might be having some streaming going on upstairs too. So anyway, how are you guys doing? We've got my wonderful prof and one and only channel member. And he says, the music sounds great. We've got Jared in the house. Welcome to you. You say, hello, the sound is good. Might not be much, but I hope your weekend is going well. Going well so far. And not really, honestly, not much of a weekend. I just found myself doing different things that wasn't so much creativity, but actually at night I did a lot of composing, much needed composing and improving. And so that feels good. Final Fantasy fan, welcome, and you have confirmed that everything looks good on your end, so that's good to go. Very nice, very nice. So thank you for joining on the atypical Sunday stream. I was going to talk about this Monday, so it's not like a change of topic. I've been busy, so I haven't really been thinking about anything too academic. But actually, before we'll get into some culture talk, I kind of just want to talk and divulge on my thoughts of culture and just how society is, looking to be. And really, I speak really more for American society, but this could be true of similarly structured, politically structured countries as well. So everybody's experience might be different, but I kind of actually just want to basically talk about how media, no matter if it's the corporate media and the news, or even in independent media outlets, even well-meaning podcasts, I've come to see that, maybe they don't know they're doing it, but there's so much information out there that's very dark, that's very negative, that's even, dare I say, apocalyptic. Like, people are basically, in a nutshell, before I extemporize, basically, if we're not careful, even people we like and respect and agree with can actually give us too much negative information, in that we get a dull sense, or we sort of get a blackened view of the world, like a morbid view of the world. And I kind of want to give you guys a white pill stream, because I actually think we're not really in dark times. The media would have you believe we're in very, very dark times, especially with the political things going on with the election coming up, elections. But I actually think it's all a matter of perspective. And it's really all a matter of what we do with our days and with our lives. So this will, I think, be a white pill stream. I want to be pretty positive. Talk about what to be aware of, but also talk about just how life can actually be a very good thing in spite of what people are telling you. So I know we don't use this phrase that much. This was a huge phrase during the pandemic. The difference between a black pill and a white pill. And I don't actually, fortunately, I'm not really into the colloquial, but I haven't really heard those terms in a long time, which I think is a good thing. But I will use the term white pill and give us a positive outlook on life and on the rest of the year and all that. So that's the first thing. Now, so that's the topic we'll be talking about. And then before we get into that topic, I just want to make maybe just one announcement as far as where my channel is going. I've decided, besides 2 videos I do need to post before the end of the year, I have actually, I'll make an official announcement probably on a video myself. But I have decided to, after making 2 more videos, I've decided to take a break from making music videos for the rest of the year. So really, November and December. I just need that extra creative time that I would be giving YouTube. I just need that extra creative time just to compose and to experiment and to practice the violin. I need some breathing space, and that extra time that I do have when I'm not doing something else with family or with work, I have to commit to my creative process. So that could be composing, that could be practicing the violin, that could be experimenting with SuperCollider, or that could be writing science fiction or reading, just continuing to read. And so with this new part-time job, we'll talk about that a little bit too. With this new part-time job, I just haven't had the stamina, really, the energy to be very hyper-focused. I can't commit to YouTube and to composing, at least for this season, for this very, very busy holiday season. So I do plan on doing 2 more videos, one for composition, and I would like to do a soundtracks video before the end of the year. I have 1 more video for my Donkey Kong Country 1 soundtrack series, and I'd like to just top off the year with that and then take a break. So besides those 2 videos, I will be actually stopping my weekly music and sound experimentation video. Oh, yeah. Oh, and the reason also, and I will put up his comment because, he is a channel member. Oh, it's going to be a busy year for you. And the other thing too is, as we announced publicly last week on Halloween, I am engaged. And a lot of my time, actually, not a lot, but a good portion of my time at the computer is really gonna get into some wedding planning. And we have a year, we have a little less than a year, but we're not putting anything off. We're trying to do a lot of work up front, even during the holidays, the holiday season. So in addition to a part-time job and getting engaged and planning for a wedding, and my wonderful prof is a wonderful support. That's also eating up my time. So that all said, while the weekly videos will be discontinuing for a couple months, I'm still streaming every Monday nights. Or if it's not Monday, it's usually going to be Monday. But if it's not Monday, it'd be like a weekend stream. So the streaming is going to continue. The streaming does take time, but it's not the level of work as, putting together a video and publishing that. So that's a little bit of an announcement. The other thing too, one other reason why I'm not investing so much time in creative YouTube content for the next couple of months is my computer. I've mentioned it before, but my computer really was telling me, even before this stream, just chugging along. It was I was composing last night, and I actually have something cool to present in the next week or two. I'm very excited to show you my upcoming piece, or at least a draft of my piece and what I'm working on. I had a huge artistic breakthrough this last week, so that's good. Anyway, my computer was really struggling, like even with basic things, like things that do not necessarily take up CPU space. I'm like, this, you're slowing down for this. And so I was almost finding myself like talking to my computer saying, listen, you've got one more project, okay? One more project, and it's a good project, and then you can retire. So in the next, I would say in a few weeks, with this new part-time job, I've been able to save a lot more. I'm gonna look around and get me a refurbished iMac. Something that's not new, something that's only like that's probably 5 years old, if not older, but, this machine here, it's 12 years old, and it's tried its hardest, and I just need more processing power, and I just need a new machine. So, um, the workflow has really stunted as well, and I just thought, "Okay, it's so hard," and it's not hard, but it's very slow to produce a lot of quality. Let me just take a couple months off. This would be the first time taking a couple months off my YouTube sound experimentation content in the 4 years that I've done this, and, let me just take a couple months off, get a new machine, get a new computer, and then start from scratch, and then finally, um really, it's I need to reorganize, my YouTube content. I feel more or less that it's been a little bit sporadic. I feel like I have kind of I will get to the topic, I promise. But I feel like I have just been, "Okay, I need to produce something every week." So sometimes it's random, sometimes it's a little Logic Pro thing. It used to be very consistent with SuperCollider, and that's just not been the case in the last couple of years, and I need to get back on that. And it's been little clips of streams, and I do think clips of streams are important, but they shouldn't substitute my music experimentation. They shouldn't substitute my creative process. And so I feel like in the last year, especially, maybe even since the pandemic, that my content has been rather disorganized. So I just need like a 2-month break, a little bit of breathing room, a little bit of an interim where my streaming will continue, but I need to reprioritize my content. My content still will be music. It will be original music. It'll be sound experimentation. But I just need to beef up my skills. I need to show people cooler things that I have, cooler than what I have been showing. I take pride in my work, and that also includes YouTube, like what I post on YouTube. And I feel like I've been sort of not lazy, but just been taking a lot of shortcuts. I haven't been completely happy with the content that I've produced. So um, there is that. That's my announcements. Anyway, let's welcome more people from the chat. We've got Private Eye, welcome, and we've got Big Al. Yes, Big Al. I know. It's Sunday, not Monday. I just we decided to have our date night tomorrow night, the Prof and me, because he had a pretty full weekend with his daughter. So I wanted to just switch the days so we have good, ample quality time together this next week. So with that all out of the way, wow, we're already at 17 minutes. Okay. So let's get started. Let's talk. Thank you, Ace. Thank you. Thank you for congratulating us. I think it's gonna be good. You can see the cards he gave you, that the Valentine Mario card. That I should I I I should bring that other card, the Star Wars. I showed it to you guys before, like a couple years ago, and then also his Professor Geek coffee cup, and then also the plant. What was that called? I don't know. The plant, the enemy of Mario, and then our pixelated portraits there. So it's great. It's good stuff. I just hope that stays. I applied an adhesive, and then it just didn't. The first attempt didn't stay. So I applied a second, or I applied a third strip of adhesive Velcro. So hopefully it stays. If it drops, then there's not much I can do until later. So Everyone, welcome. Thank you guys for joining me on this atypical stream. So, I wanted to talk about just culture in general. Just things I was probably going to reflect on at the end of the year. It's one of those topics that I think would be good. Like, oh, what did I learn this year? I think those things are very important. But just kind of wanting to make it an encouraging stream. So basically, whether it's something like the fandom menace and their review bashings of bad entertainment, or things in the political sphere, and we won't go specifically into specific politics, but it cannot be denied that, major players on YouTube and major players in the corporate media news outlets, and also then on our favorite podcasts and our favorite channels and stuff like that, many people talk day in and day out about how bad things are. And this stream is not to discount or disparage against any very serious thing. Obviously, war is going on, conflict is going on. We've got crime waves, we've got violence, we've got diseases, we've got world hunger, we've got very, very serious things. There's no question, and those need to be addressed, and those need to be resolved. People in such conditions, they need to be helped out. And I would say the church is really responsible for such a thing. But I would also just say people in general, are responsible to help out those situations. For instance, sponsoring a kid in a South American country or a Central American country, that is a very common thing, and it's still done. It's still practiced. So there is. I'm actually quite an empathetic person, where I do occasionally, like once every 4 or 5 months, I will have a day where I feel very heavy, and heavy-hearted toward people who are suffering in the world. That could be Christian empathy. That just could be empathy. There will be a day every 4 months or so where the suffering of the world will hit me hard. So I don't want to say very carelessly that on this stream, like, oh, let's just talk about positive things. Let's have a white pill moment. That's not to discount the suffering in the world and the injustices in the world. What I'm talking about is this constant inundation online and on our favorite YouTube channels and our favorite podcasts and our favorite things we might listen on various platforms, various websites. I'm talking about people who you might agree with, you might politically align yourself with, you might religiously align yourself with, you might share the same traditions of, family traditions, and moral. You might share the same ideas of morality and intellectualism and stuff like that. You might align yourself with such people that you agree with, people who you've been listening to for years. But I think I've reached, at least in the last couple of months, I have reached to a point where I've reached to a point where people I really like and really respect, and who I think are good speakers and can talk and converse very well with other people, I've found myself almost having to block them, not block them online, on a platform, or say to YouTube, no, I don't want to hear their channels. I mean, sometimes I do if the thumbnail's kind of you're pretty provocative. But I've actually, it's probably by the graces of this new job I have. I just haven't had time to listen to a lot of things that I used to have time listening to, and I think that's a good thing, because I have found myself having a hard time to listen to people I even agree with. And why is that? It's because the news is not only bad, and then their commentary is not only on the negative or the worrying or the troublesome or the concerning. It's the same stuff. Maybe it's the same topic, just painted in a different way. Maybe it's the exact same political issue, but in a different country, or maybe in a different part of a country, or something like that. And or maybe it's an ideology that I would stand in opposition against. but it's a different story in a different state, in a different town. It's like it's the same thing. I'm hearing it's not news because it's really just the same old, same old. And when you are finding yourself watching or listening to such podcasts or such commentary on a daily basis, but also even a more frequent basis than that, even if they're very insightful and very intellectual in their approach to such commentary, it actually really gets to you. And the reason why it got to me is no one's solving anything. They're just talking about it. So it's like, okay, you're talking about this. Okay, we can be warned, but at the same time, if such a thing happened in my city or in my town or in my church or in my job, I would confront it and say, "No, I'm not going to be part of that." I don't really need to be told the same story in different colors. I don't need to be told, you know, the same problem just in like in all these different factors with all these different people. It is a problem. I would agree with these podcasts and these people I like. I would agree that it is a problem. I would agree that it could be, dare say, the very strong word evil, but and wicked. But if there's no solution, if people are actually not working toward a solution, I would actually prefer not to immerse myself or prefer not to consume so much of my time and my mental energy on the same problem. And I started thinking about this, within the last month or two, that it's like, okay, so things aren't being resolved. Things aren't being solved. Problems aren't being solved. They're just being commented on. They're just being, mentioned. And I thought about it. I was like, you know what? This is kind of the addictive culture that I had been talking about regarding, the fandom menace and their listeners, where they are constantly going to the different channels to get the same input. And I thought, you know what? Even though I'm not doing that with popular entertainment, I might be doing that with some of these podcasts. What was the indication of that? Well, YouTube said, "Oh, you like this podcast, and you like this speaker, you're gonna wanna listen to all their contemporaries and all these other speakers." I'm like, "No, I don't actually. I don't prefer that personality. I don't prefer this group over here. I mean, they're fine talking about what they're talking about. I don't prefer it." So the algorithm was telling me, "You want more of this," and I was telling myself, I'm like, "No, I don't want more. I don't need more." That's the thing. It's like I would rather spend the extra time listening to a symphony, a piece of music, or listening to an audiobook. I'm getting to that point where it's like, okay, enough is enough. I know the world has its problems. I know our country has its problems, the administration, of course, and all of that, but enough is enough. I get there are issues, but I have to say no. And I have to say no to people I agree with. I have to say no to people I respect. If I don't say no to these well-meaning people, these well-articulate people, articulate. Did I say that right? I don't know. I'm streaming. These eloquent people, these eloquent speakers. If I don't say no to them, then I run the risk of just going into this constant cycle, this echo chamber of thoughts, even if it's intellectual, even if they're talking about some reference, some historical reference of the same problem. It's like, you know what? If it's not being fixed, I would prefer not to spend so much time on it. And I bring this whole thing up because I think this really can cast a shadow over our view of the world, meaning we're seeing things bleakly. Like we're seeing the world as a very bleak thing. We're seeing the world as a very dark thing, and we're seeing problems get worse and worse and worse. And I'm getting to the point, and I don't listen to these people, but YouTube has recommended, "Oh, you're of this political belief, then you're going to listen to this host." I'm like, "No, I don't want anything to do with that host." So I say not interested. Just because I like this guy doesn't mean I'm going to watch this guy. Um, and some of these people, that YouTube recommends, they have outright fear-mongering titles. Like, I can't remember the recent one I saw. It was something like, "Oh, the US should be very, very concerned with this." It's like, or even this, you should be afraid of this. You should be afraid of this. And I'm like, that's not good. Even if it is true, even if your supposition of the way things are is true, that's still no reason for you on your platform to cause so much anxiety and panic among a very huge audience. Just for kicks, a couple days ago, I went on a video I would not otherwise click on, and I was listening to the comments, not listening. I heard their voices though because they were so emphatic. Their typing was very emphatic. I was reading the comments, and it was just fear after fear after fear. Like, people were so deathly afraid of almost it looked like they were deathly afraid of leaving their own home. Like, there's like, "Oh my goodness, it's all gonna cave and close in and collapse all around us." And that's what these respectable people on these major corporate news outlets are causing these people, to behave in this way and to act and to think this way. Now, they have every right to say whatever they want, but I will call out the fear mongering, the think, the fear mongering tactic, and that is to get people very, very much afraid. Now, this leads to another point. This what we used to call outrage culture, where people clicked on things that made them mad, or clicked on things that is so horrendous or so over the top absurd, like reality TV. And I want to say that outrage culture switched over now to what I would call the car wreck culture, the wreckage. People want to see the bad. People are so now wired to look at the latest terrible headline. They want to see the accident. They want to see the car accident. And if you actually gave yourself a break, like a week from any news or any commentary, even if it's an independent commentator, you'll find that people forget the story the next week. That's the first thing. And then also, sometimes the story doesn't develop into its full truth, if you will, until all the speculation subsides, and it's given like 2 to 3 weeks to develop, or something like that. People need to slow down. Now, obviously, the year 2020 was hard for everyone, for their different reasons. There's no denying that. But what I would be grateful for with 2020 is that, okay, I'm back. I'll just leave the camera off for just a second. But what I was about to say was, what I'm grateful for with 2020 is that it really slowed people down. Now, I think we're getting to that hyperactive speed again. I think now that people are going back to their routine and their jobs and their schools and all of that, and getting stuff done, I think that kind of hyperactivity and that hyper focused speed that you definitely see in Seattle, that you definitely see on the East Coast, you do not see that as much in the Southeast part of the United States. Probably not on the Southwest, but I just never lived in the Southwest before. Anyway, that's coming up. That's ramping up again. But however, I would say that the couple of years, 2020 and 2021, at least taught people to slow down. And I hope a lot of people keep that. Now, what I would say they shouldn't keep is the perpetuating anxiety and the perpetuating fear. So this outrage culture, like, people would post headlines and post YouTube videos that would get people railed up and mad, or speculate, like, oh wow, like people looking inside the freak show, they want to see what the freak show is about. That's now shifted over to the car accident, the car wreck, where it's like, oh my gosh, it's so terrible. How can things be so terrible? So, I was actually talking for a lot of the summer, I was talking about how people on different YouTube channels will talk about how terrible a show is, and people would say, "Oh, I can't believe how ridiculous that is." That's actually happening in the world of politics and commentary and socio-political things and economic things, where things we really shouldn't care about gets the center stage, gets the limelight. And I'll give an example. Something I absolutely cannot stand, and people, well, okay, I tolerate it just a little bit, and people can, you can think, guys, whatever you want to think, but I think it is absolutely dumb and pointless to talk about our president eating ice cream. I don't care. Like, and people get so outraged when our president has an interview with someone or is talking to someone eating ice cream. And people are so outraged by that. It's like, he's an old man and he's becoming senile and he's eating ice. See, eating ice cream. See, that's the indicator that you're getting senile if you eat ice cream. Now, here's the thing. I'm not talking about him being senile or anything. What I'm saying is that is such a small matter to talk about. Yet that's a thing that gets the limelight. In fact, I actually truly believe, maybe not truly, but I do believe a lot of things are that we see with our current administration. I would not be surprised. I would not put it past them to have that be a publicity stunt just to incite the outrage, just to incite the car accident that is our president eating ice cream. We've got much bigger fish to fry than our president eating ice cream. Now, people would say, no, 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 we're mad that he's eating ice cream because it doesn't look like he cares about the everyday man or the middle class family. It's like, well, that could be true, but actually go directly to his policies that affect negatively the middle class family. Don't talk about ice cream. That's stupid. It's this pointless rhetoric where we have to we have to drum up the excitement and the outrage of the car accident that is our current president eating ice cream. It was just as ridiculous when our previous president gave all these football players, these pro athletes, McDonald's instead of like something else that the White House should have done. Oh, how dare he? How dare he give these pro football players McDonald's? That's ludicrous. It's like that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. And why I bring this up is that we're now being conditioned, if we're not careful, we're being conditioned to really get either angry, indignant, well, and I would add also fearful. Angry, indignant, and fearful. Our culture and our media, no matter who it is, no matter what part of the political spectrum, no matter how intelligent they are, how many people they have as an audience, how big their audience is, what their ratings are, no matter who it is, everyone is taught now to say, we got to produce content that people will watch. And what are they going to watch? They're going to watch the car accidents. They're going to watch the stuff that really should make us all mad. And it doesn't matter if it has to be the same story every single day of the year. It doesn't matter. We just have to tell it to them because otherwise we won't get our clicks and we won't get our premium subscriptions. You know, and instead of talking about good news or at least some moments that are more white-pilled moments, let's just keep talking about this problem and haranguing people about how upset they should be about this problem. To that I say, I'm like, okay, it's important to be aware of a problem, but what are you going to do about it? Well, I'm not doing that about it because I'm not part of the government. I'm not part of the administration. It's like, you need to do something about it. It's like, try to solve the problem. Don't talk about the problem. Try to solve the problem. That's where kind of we are being conditioned to see everything in a very, through a very dark lens. Like, you know the phrase rose-colored glasses, but now it's in the inverse. It's the inverse where it's like, oh, no, no, no. You really shouldn't think that things are going okay. You really should be worried and you should feel like the struggle and you should be indignant that these things are happening. It just does not matter wherever you are on the socio-political spectrum. So I've decided in the last month or so that even if it's people I like, even if it's people that I respect, that I enjoy listening to. I just I would go on their channel or I would go on their podcast and I'm about to click on the topic and I'm like, I think I can find something better. Because it's the same old stuff. It's the same old stuff. So that's what we've been conditioned to believe. The world wants us to believe that it's going to the pits, that the world is ending. And a lot of people of my religion would be the same way. Like I have parents, not parents. Thank goodness, not my parents, but I do have relatives who are convinced it's the end times. Bible doesn't say we should know when the end times are. I was like, but look at these political relations. It's like those political relations existed before the 20th century too. Yeah, but it's amped up. And then we got all these earthquakes and tsunamis and stuff. It's like earthquakes and tsunamis have always happened too. I'm not saying now as a Christian, I got to be careful. I'm not saying the end times aren't coming or aren't nearby or in the near future, but I'm not going to be the one to say, oh, this is it. Because we always, Christians and non-Christians, we've always made fun of people who would, there was always a figure, like an online figure or some person on the radio who said, this is when the world's going to end. And they scammed a lot of people because they try to make people afraid and say, oh yeah, you're right. What should I do? And then nothing happens. It's the same way with this. It's like, I did actually have one pastor a while back who said that it's very myopic, it's very shallow-minded of Christians in America today to believe that the end times are coming because America is struggling. We could be in for some rough times in this country, but that's not an indication that the end times are happening. That's actually kind of an insult to everyone else in the world, in third world countries and other countries that have been hammered with a lot of, questionable leadership. Who are we to think, oh, well, now because things are getting really questionably bad here, oh, now we can say the end times are coming. It's like, no, we could have some really rough history ahead of us, and the end times aren't coming. So I'm saying that to Christians, but you get the idea. It's like we're being so hard pressed and so conditioned and getting restrung and wired to believe the worst is yet to come. The worst can come, but I have decided for myself that I'm like, I cannot worry about that. I can't put that level of anxiety upon myself until it actually happens. And until then, I'm just gonna let God handle it. And if it happens, then he's gonna be around to help us out in that too. So that's the first part of my talk where I'm like, yeah, even people who you like really know how much you are consuming their content because you can actually find yourself hearing the same old stuff. One second, let me grab some water real quick. And let's go ahead and get into the chat. And then I'll talk about the second half of the talk. And thanks guys so much for visiting on this fine Sunday. Final Fantasy fan, you are saying you're quoting Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. Between two groups of people who wish to make inconsistent kinds of worlds, I see no remedy but force. Yeah, well, if it comes to that, it comes to that. But I'm just, I'd just like a resolution. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, like as far as our culture is concerned. The inner workings of society between corporations and stuff to just make us very afraid. The people found out how to capitalize on fear. Even people who have good goals and are altruistic goals, they will, to get their audience and to get their reach, they will capitalize on the negative. So that is one thing to consider. Ace says, only God knows the day and the hour of when the end comes. Yeah, who are we to know? I mean, Christians are, again, this is Christians, specifically Christians, but Christians are taught, we are taught that not even the Son of Man knows, okay? Which means no human being knows. But no, so there's so many problems. Like, yeah, there've always been problems. And people got through it one way or another. I mean, don't get me wrong, there have been terrible things in human history, both political and also natural. With things like the Black Plague, a lot of people did not survive. A lot of people had horrendous deaths and stuff like that. So again, I don't want to discount that and disregard that. But at the same time, we also need to find a good solution and also just mitigate the constant that inundation of the bad. And I think that's going to lead me to the next part of my talk. Let me grab one more swig of water. So, wanted to, talk about, what really is happening, at least in American society. Now, this might be applicable. I would say it could be applicable to a lot of other countries, depending if the socio-political economic sphere is similar, if not structured the same, at least similar. So, so everyone and their mother who has a platform, everyone who has a platform will tell you that, to use the phrase, going to hell in a handbasket. And it's simply not the case. It's simply not the case. And I would actually posit that a lot of people who would say something like that, like even your relatives or your friends who would say something like that, might not go out into the world that much, might not see things. Now, there are factors, so let's kind of break it down. If you live in a major city, like if you're in the US, if you live in Seattle, if you live in Portland, if you live in Detroit, if you live in parts of Chicago, if you live in San Francisco, San Diego, pretty much those major cities. If you live in a major city, yeah, you see awful stuff. There's no question. There's no question that the news is real. What the news shows you is real, and it's awful. The rise in crime and violence and all of that in a major city, and a lot of things that are happening in those cities. Yeah, it's pretty bleak. It's pretty bleak. But the thing is, people who live in those cities really should be aware. And I'm talking about also people on these major platforms who are talking about the news and stuff like that. They need to be aware that if you go to a random city in the US, somewhere in Iowa, for instance, if you go to a random city, just take a car, take a train, take a car, don't even fly, just drive the distance, drive the 8 to 9 hours. Give yourself like a 10 to 12 hour drive if you have the time and money. Save up for a road trip. Just go out there by yourself, and you will find at a gas station, or you will find at a restaurant, or you'll find at a nearby hotel, or a hotel adjacent to the next city over. You're going to find even the comparably large cities, but definitely the small towns and the smaller cities don't have these problems. They have some of these problems, but they do not have these problems. I live in a place where, in the city, or in the country rather, where you just do not see the bad. People are living normal lives. Yeah, okay, so beef is higher in price, but chicken really isn't. I don't like chicken. Well, okay, turkey. Yeah, so beef is like a couple dollars more. But gas, even though it's still expensive than it was like 8 years ago, it's not like what you would see in certain states, and especially major cities. It's doable. It's doable, especially if you have a job. If you see for yourself, or even live in a comparably inexpensive town, or you work to get save up for a house out in the rural areas, you will find that you can live pretty cheaply, and things actually are pretty accommodating, and people are nicer. You'll find yourself talking to people who you've never met before, you'll never see again, and people are nicer. Now, people will say, "Well, Michelle, you're talking about the South specifically because Southerners are like that." You know, Southerners are naturally more amicable. They're hospitable. They're very kind. It's like, yeah, but I love road trips, so I have gone on very long road trips. I love seeing the landscape. I love seeing how big the US is. If you live in the US, if you've never done a road trip across the US, you have to. Yeah, I know people will say, well, flying is much faster. Yeah, it is much faster. Driving is long, that's for sure. But you understand the scope and the space of the US. When you see the geography and the different little populations all across the US, and you see the random towns that you wouldn't even think were on the map, and the random small cities, people are pretty chill. Not just Southerners, people in Iowa, people in South Dakota, people in Wyoming, people in Idaho and Montana. You just go to those states, and you'll see what the news won't tell you. You'll see people actually just, yeah, it's making ends meet. It's probably harder, but it's not apocalyptic. It's not the end of the world. Crime is way down in these towns and cities because they take their sheriff seriously. And people are by and large just in a naturally good mood. Albeit if they would have kids in Walmart and the parents are cranky with the kids in Walmart. But other than that, like that's every Walmart. And actually Walmart's kind of like has its own, stereotypical, you know, uh, personality of people with different personalities. But what I'm saying is the news and the world would have you say, oh my gosh, it's like this everywhere in the US, and it's not. I mean, not even in places or the time of the pandemic. Yeah, it was pretty strict with some places. Like any city that was over 100,000 in population, which is a lot, but a lot of cities. Yeah, okay, they were pretty restrictive. But then really after the curve or after the year, especially after the year, people just decided, you know what? I think I think we'll just try doing things normally again. And they don't let people, that's the thing, is people outside in the world, in the grocery store, at the gas station, they don't really let the it doesn't look like anyway that they let the news bother them. And so that's more of a positive spin on things where it's not as bleak as it would be if you lived in a major city. Now the problem with living in a major city, I know a lot of people can't leave for different reasons. I know, but I will say this. The problem with living in a major city is, yeah, you're close to all these city amenities and stuff like that, but you're you're also cramped. You're also in crazy high living expenses. If you go to a town, yeah, you might have a job at the local grocery store as a grocer. I don't know. You know what I mean? Just working at a grocery store. Yeah, but if you go decide to live in a small town, you're going to be paying so much less. You're probably going to feel freer. You might not have as nice a job, maybe not as nice a prestigious job or whatever, and that's subjective, by the way. If you can grab 30 hours a week comfortably at a grocery store, you can find yourself living in an accommodating place in the U.S. And not even kings and queens and royal people centuries before had such luxury as indoor plumbing and electricity. So we actually do have it good. I mean, even if you had a meager job for the rest of your life, we do have it good. So I'm going to um, kind of close it, or at least have our have a climax of this topic of you know what we've lost sight of as far as our society. So I kind of wanted to bring to the table to people who might think that the world is, becoming this, apocalyptic thing, especially, in the US, and people are saying, oh, it's getting worse and stuff like that. I think a lot of people, I work at a place, by the way, at this retail store where there are a lot of travelers, a lot of travelers. And more than once, I've talked with people. I'm like, "Oh, where are you from?" And they would say, "Oh, we're from this state, but we've moved to this state because of the migration happening, away from states to other states." And I'd be happy for them. And they would say things like, "I have just never been happier. Things are cheaper, people are nicer, everything is a lot more accommodating. I never thought I would need to leave where I left, but things are just better for us. It was time to leave, and we found a place, and it could be a state in the middle of nowhere, really. Like it could be a lot of people use, I don't know if they use this phrase disparagingly, but the phrase flyover states, the flyover states that are kind of made fun of because it's like, oh, those people are simpletons. It's not like the West Coast or the East Coast or California where we're sophisticated and we're intellectual. And it's like these people, in the mimal states, uh, they're pretty intelligent in their own way. Like they can take care of stuff that I just would never be able to take care of, or even people I would know. Like yeah. So anyway, but just encouraging people to consider living simpler lives. I think people have put a lot of pressure upon themselves saying, well, I need status, therefore I need luxury, therefore I need to live in a high-end loft in a city. And I think if that is your desire, I mean, it used to be mine for a while. If that is your desire, then that is something you would have to say, okay, well, it's worth all this drudgery of living in a city right now, in a major city. But I would consider people who don't really prefer either or, like, or wouldn't care either way, to consider a state that they would have never considered, or a city or a town. They're like, well, that's a small town. It's like, you know what? Go to a small town. I have been I've been very happy with my living situation, and I haven't been happier really as far as location. And I think people are too scared to leave what they think is comfortable or familiar, even if it's slog or slosh or swill, whatever. Like just the dross of it. That's probably the word I'm looking for, just the dross of it all. And and I think if people consider, even people with families, if they consider going to a different state and a different way of life, they might actually consider that things actually could look up. Things could be looking up for them in rapid ways. So that's the first thing I'm thinking of is people who feel highly anxious about something, they should consider a simpler way of life, and considering a state or a city that they would never considered before. And even more than that, consider a job they wouldn't consider before. This is leading me to my next point, is that we've been conditioned to be quite prejudiced to just menial jobs. We've been conditioned to hate our jobs. We've been conditioned to hate work itself. And I kind of want to revamp, if that would be the word, um, or at least revisit the value of work for work's sake. Uh, this place that I was looking at, I just didn't have enough students to have a comfortable income, so I had to start looking for work, and it was about a year of looking for, just considering different work. And I was open to working at a grocery store, getting some part-time hours and some money there. I was open to getting a job that an uneducated, well, I don't want to say an uneducated person in a disparaging way, but basically a 16-year-old, a 16-year-old who hasn't had, the education that I have had, where I don't need my degrees to apply. And I thought, okay, I do need the extra money. I need to save. We're saving up for a wedding next year. I need to be frugal. Well, actually, I am pretty frugal, but now I'm going to be extra frugal with my extra part-time job. and it's retail and um, I'm making a fraction, like, I'm making 1/4 of what I can make. Actually, probably 1/5, if I'm honest. I'm making 1/5 of what I can make as a private teacher, and I've done private music lessons for 7, 8 years now, I've got the qualities, I've got the qualifications, and this one place in particular, it's at this historical site, and I just really wanna keep supporting the continuing of American history and American heritage because at a very historical location. A lot of rich history in this location. And so I thought, "Oh, you guys need help," like, "Oh, can I just take an application?" I just felt good about it. I was like, "You know what? Just give me an application. Let me fill this out and let me send this to you." And a week later, I got an interview. And she's like, "Well, what days can you work?" I'm like, "Well, I've got this teaching. I've got these students. I can give you 1 day. Let's start with 1 day." And then because it's the holiday season, that 1 day became 3 days. So now I'm working much more than that I had anticipated, but it doesn't bother me. I'm exhausted by the time the day is done. Tomorrow, for instance, we're gonna have 250 eighth graders within the span of 3 hours. We're gonna go in this little store. It's not that little, but it's little for 250 eighth graders. It's gonna be nuts. It's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to the challenge. That kind of stuff actually doesn't stress me out anymore. I'm 35. I don't need to be stressed out by that. And I'm not paid enough to be stressed out, but I value the work, just to give them help. I value giving them help. I value so I value work for work's sake. And I think that's important. I think it's most important for this day and age because we're really in the land of opportunity and we're in the time of opportunity. 16-year-olds, 15 and 16-year-olds have it so good right now. People say, "How can you say that? Everyone's so highly riddled with anxiety and prescriptions and medication and poor education and stuff like that." It's like, get a 16-year-old the gumption to get a job. They can select anything they want. When I was 16, I had to be very not selective. I couldn't be picky. I could not be picky. I would walk from store to store, walk with really nice clothes on, fill out an application, send them a resume with that application, then go to the next store, the next store. I would spend hours. I would spend my weekends looking for work in that way. Take a bus ride, go to all the other stores, take a bus ride, go to the mall and stuff like that. And whoever would hire me, I would graciously accept. "Oh, thank you, thank you." And so my first job was food, and then it was, more food, like, with Auntie Anne's and stuff like that. And I learned work ethic that way. 16-year-olds now, they can get anything they want. They could they if they wanted to, pick up a job delivering pizza, they could do that. If they want to work at the mall, they if they wanted to work at the mall, the food court pays $4 more an hour than what I make at this retail place. Teenagers have it so lucky now. They can choose anything they want because everywhere is hiring. No one wants to work anymore. No one has the incentive to work. That's actually the detriment that the pandemic had caused is that no one wants to work anymore. I felt like this place that I'm working at now, I felt like, they need the help. I want to help them. And I do need the extra money. I could probably find a job that pays a little bit more, but I'm like, it's a nice store. It's wonderful. It's at a historical site. But people aren't working anymore. And can you imagine if everyone just worked a day? If every citizen of a legal age could work a day at a place, our economy would be booming again. I mean, there's so many stores and there's so many restaurants that are closing. I mean, actually, even something like the Dollar Tree. So anyway, I'll be in and out of camera for now. But what I was saying is like You know, we have the Dollar Tree in certain parts of our area, but one of them right next to the music store I work at. I do work at a music store in addition to teaching online. I teach lessons there. I have a few students there. Sometimes I want to go to the Dollar Tree after work, and it's like a 2-minute drive, and then it's closed, and it's closed for the first time since we've seen it. And it's because, well, my guess is because they're understaffed. Like people are people aren't picking up jobs, like easy jobs, man, easy jobs. No one's working. And I think we've lost the incentive to work as a culture. We've lost value. I'm not talking about people who with disabilities who can't work. I know people, there are some people who just can't work. I'm talking about able-bodied people. I'll give you an ironic image. Okay, so you know, in a city, even in a small city, you'll have homeless people stand at the intersection asking for cash. Okay, so someone who's in a wheelchair or someone who's old, like an old veteran in a wheelchair, that I understand. But I do see some people who will have signs and they are able-bodied. They're younger than me and they're men. So they're definitely able-bodied. There's no question. And there's this one intersection, and there's an able-bodied man standing in one corner, and just across the street, he can read it from the distance he's at, you know, his position. There's a sign for a car wash that says, "Now hiring, starting pay 16 an hour." 16 an hour. My first job, and I'm sure a lot of people who are a little older than me had less. My first job was 7 an hour. Now it's 16 an hour. And people will say, well, the expenses are too much. But it's like, well, if you're homeless or asking for cash and you're able-bodied, when I see no disability, I'm thinking, okay, there's a sign right there. You could start, and people will take you. If you have good work ethics, people are ready to take you. There has not been such a willing spirit than in this decade now for people to take people for hire. People want to hire. They're desperate to hire. And no one's taking up positions because no one has the incentive to work anymore. I find that to be a little tragic. I find that to be where people feel entitled. It's like, no, I am above this job. I I'm working with teenagers pretty much. You know, I'm taking on a job that a 15-year-old can take. It's just you have to swallow that pride. I don't think I have that pride. I just need the money. I just needed the extra money. But you have to swallow that pride if you do have it because it's like, no, just work. Just work for the sake of work. There is value in work. And I think artists really struggle with this. People who have degrees, people who are used to teaching, people who would be like me, being a professional musician. I mean, I've made a lot of money as a professional musician before, and I have to really consider how much less I'm making. But artists and musicians, I would say they I think they have the worst trouble with entitlement. I think they struggle with being entitled. It's like, well, no, I have this, these degrees and I have this experience. I should just stick with this. But if it's not available, then you should find something else. I love being a music teacher, and I would love to do it part-time. And if I have more students, then I will say that the retail will have to go. But I've not been in a position where I've had enough students to make a viable income, really ever. Because the last city that I lived at was very expensive to live in, and so I just made just enough. But if you don't have that option, you have to work. You have to value work for the sake of work. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about is that it is such a ripe good time to be a teenager, but also to be anyone. There are so many jobs out there, so many people wanting to hire just someone who would show up, someone who would show up and wax the floor and run a till, you know, be a cash register. And it's really, you're not flying a plane, you know, you're not in the control tower. You're not at a crime scene of a homicide. It's not hard. It's not intellectually hard, and it shouldn't be emotionally hard to run a cash register. You really shouldn't put so much stress on yourself. A lot of people have anxiety when it comes to having a job. I get it. It's it's gonna take you out of your comfort zone. But our economy and at least in the US, we have been disincentivized to work at all. To work at all. Um, I actually would say just a tiny bit, just a little bit. I would say that something like this platform has also done that, where people will say, "Well, I just want to make money off of TikTok. I just want to make." I don't know if you can. You can monetize on Facebook, I know, but things like YouTube and Facebook, it's like, "Well, I just want to see if I can be an entrepreneur on YouTube." It's like, well, it's good if you can manage that. It's good if you can manage that, but there's still good work to be had if you're available. Even if you just worked 1 day a week, I think the economy would be in very um, good hands when people would just take the initiative. One thing that I love, and I'll get back to the chat soon. One thing that I love with the two new jobs that I have, I work as a violin instructor at a music store, and I have my own private online instruction as well. I think I have 11 students, and it's just not enough. It's not enough to make an income. I need more students. I need like 20 or 25. But anyway, what I love about these new jobs that I've picked up is I get taxed. I'm happy to be a taxpayer because it stinks to be a contractor where you have to make estimated taxes. So anyway, let's go ahead and get back to the chat. I just wanted to talk about culture today. Just, the world is not as bleak, at least in the US. But maybe if you're from Europe or something like that too, the world the world is not as bleak as media would have you as media would want you to believe. Yeah, bad stuff happens. There's awful stuff happening all the time, all the time. One thing too, and we'll get to the chat. Let me make this final point. One thing as well. I'll be a little honest when I confess this to the public. Uh, you won't see it because I don't show it, and even when I experience it, I do my very best not to show it. Prof knows. I'm a person who suffers great anxiety. I don't show it, but I struggle with it. But I will say this: to assuage the anxiety, to alleviate it, or even to remove it altogether, first of all, eat healthy and exercise, get some fresh air. But the second thing is pray also. Pray is good. Praying is good. But the other thing too is that you have to be productive. You have to feel like you're contributing to society. Now, I have a little bit of a buffer with that with my creative art, but sometimes it just takes forever to produce my music or obviously I'm writing my story and I haven't published anything. So it takes time. And a couple things happened to me the last couple of months that really helped me with my anxiety. And that was getting a job and really saving for a special thing like a wedding, but also saving up to start a life with Professor Geek, being frugal and saying, okay, this isn't me anymore. And I need to see what his needs are. And so I'm focusing right now on the financial needs. Like, what do we need to save for? What do we need to consider financially? And I'm happy to do that. That actually gives me a lot of fulfillment to be that. I call it the budgeteer. I'm going to be the budgeteer of the couple. um, so getting a new job, even if it pays less and it's not music related, I still find fulfillment in the work itself and what it's working towards, like saving money for special things or things that need to be taken care of or paid off. That actually gives me a lot of fulfillment, and that alone actually has alleviated a lot of anxiety. The second thing I did, and I should have just done this a long time ago. This last couple of months, I've just not really practiced the violin like I should. And Tuesday, I had about an hour between lessons, and I'm like, you know what? I just need an hour of very hard music to play. I need to sight read and I need to look through these. I have these etude books. I have these old etude books from all these composers of the 1800s and maybe even the 1700s who have composed very hard studies, very hard violin studies for their violin students. And so I actually just took some of those studies to my work and I just started going through the pages and I just started doing grueling exercises, just almost like running, like breaking a sweat on the violin, practicing my sight reading skills, and then just also just general skills like double stops and trills and stuff like that. And after an hour before my final couple lessons, I felt really good. I felt so good. Like I had done a workout, like an intellectual and artistic workout. I needed to do that. I needed to have that hour of complete exertion. That kind of productivity, in addition to me composing and stuff like that, that the practicing the violin just centers me. It makes everything right. It just does. Playing the violin and getting better and doing hard things on the violin really centers me, and it might not remove or get rid of my anxiety completely, but it for that moment and for that day, it purges it. I will say this, I don't experience anxiety every day. It's every so often, and when it happens, it happens in a huge bout. But anyway, so that level of exertion on my violin and getting good on my violin in that hour, in that window before my lesson between my lessons rather, I felt good. And I was like, "Yeah, that's what I need to do." Why I say that is that the anxiety we see, especially with the youth in this world today, if they put their minds to a job, even if it's a menial job, even if it's a receptionist job. I was a receptionist after my master's. Come on, you can do it. It's fine. It's good work to do that and to be of service to people. Um, put yourself to a job and do something creatively, or if not creative, let's say you're not an artistic person or a creative person, put your body to work. Like be a gardener, run a set of miles, um, do something that is productive, and then and find a way to have it be a service to someone else. So for me, my violin is to perform for people and make people feel good. I'll be performing actually at my store that I work at in December for some Yuletide Christmas, and that'll be fun. But serving people, like being productive for your own well-being, and then using that productivity to serve people. And I think if you stay productive, the anxiety, it might not go away completely, but it will be much less than what many young people experience. And I would say older people too. But a lot of people experience anxiety because they don't know what to do with themselves. They make stuff up, but they don't harness it in. And it's not like this like electricity, just like harness it in and then light the city with your productivity. And I think that's important for people to understand. The more productive you are, and then the more you route that productivity to serve a person, it could be a spouse, it could be a relative, it could be a school, it could be a class, it could be someone or some group at church, whatever it is, that's going to actually cause the world to be a better place. So that's what I wanted to say as well. We'll get back into the chat and then we'll wrap it up. I meant this to be under 60 minutes, but of course not. Private Eye says, I find it both fascinating and depressing that this is the state of the US, and I'm from a third world country. Man, I'm going to say this, Private Eye, and I don't know your experience living in a third world country. Materialistically, we have it good here in the US, but psychologically, we have it very bad. Some people who would need another country or another group of people to give them hygiene, like hygienic products or clean water. We don't think about clean water. We don't think about running water really. We sort of think about it here because we live in the country. and we have well water. But we don't, as Americans, we don't think about running water as a thing until like the power goes out, and then something that kills the running water, that's electricity induced. Yeah, we understand it when the power goes out in the country, not in the city. We don't have material dilemma. People would say with their, $7 lattes that we have, but we don't. People will say, no, the food supply chain and stuff like that. It hasn't happened yet. Don't worry about it until it happens, and then we have to figure it out. We don't struggle with the material in the American space, but we do struggle with the psychological. For instance, high level of anxiety. And actually, if you're fine with mentioning as much, private eye, what is the level of anxiety in your country? You don't have to be specific about your country or where you are, but we have a very high level of psychological disorder because we're not content. And it's because we don't produce and we don't do good to people. We don't do well, we don't do good. I think that's the crux of what we're experiencing here in America. A says, I live in the South and I know some dirt bags that aren't remotely nice. There are dirt bags everywhere. It's not indicative of the South. But you can't deny that people, like, the South has a reputation of being very friendly, very accommodating. I would say maybe the Midwest people don't see the distinction between Midwest and Southerners. Where you see the distinction is the West Coast. Wait, that's the East Coast for you. And the East Coast. No, that's the West Coast for you. You know what I mean? You go to a West Coast or East Coast city, oh yeah, you'll see the distinction. No one makes eye contact. No one talks to you. Yeah, so there's that. Big Al says, let's just post it up. It's good to have a purpose. That's right. That's absolutely right. Yep. Yeah, okay. Ace, you make a really good point. And it's kind of touching on what I said, that no one wants to earn a living. They want to be a YouTube celebrity influencer. Now, if there's a way to be, I know, man. I know, I'm kind of feeling it. Like, there's a podcast that I do listen to that I do like, and they make their money and they make their business, but it's like, yes, it's intellectual, it's good. You need the intellectualism in our society, no question, but we really have lost the value of blue collar work. Just good old fashioned. Hey, I'll give you a real life example. Just tonight, before coming on stream, I was at Walmart, and the lines. I don't know where you guys are across the country, but the lines in Walmart are epic. They're so long, and it's because they don't have cash registers. And so after waiting for like pretty much 15 minutes to ring up 2 items. And I'm very merciful, by the way, because I've done customer service for so long. I've done customer service for many years. And I asked the girl, I said, what's the starting pay for a cashier? And she said, I think it's $14 an hour. I was like, that's cool. And she's like, yeah, we're hiring. I'm like, I just took another job. But hey, guess what? You make more than me. So, like, you want to solve the problems of inconvenience, go to Walmart and get a job as a cashier. And people think they're above that. That's the sad thing. Now, the thing is, if you don't have a need for it, I get it. Let's say you really are, all my time is spent with my family. All my time, and the time that I don't spend with my family, I need to spend with my creative craft. I get it. If you're in that stage in your life where you are comfortable, that you're not struggling and you're not squandering money and you're not living extravagant lifestyles and stuff like that, or where you're in debt and stuff like that, if you've got everything paid off and you're secure in your finances and you spend the time with your family and your creative endeavors, yeah, I get it. It makes sense that you wouldn't be inclined to do a job or have a job at Walmart. But the people who really do need work and are just on their bums all day and don't have families to look after and stuff like that, they're the ones that they need to just value work. So anyway. Private eye, you're right. By the way, I'm so grateful that I am monetized, that my channel is monetized, but I will never seek a career on YouTube. YouTube is for people to know my music. That's the whole point of YouTube. It's my own marketing. It's free. It's awesome. I enjoy talking to you guys. But no, a career in YouTube is not viable at all. All right, a couple more things on the chat, and then we'll wrap it up. Final Fantasy fan says, "Be productive. Go write, draw, or paint, or read, or exercise. Just go outside." Yeah, I know. You should go outside. Look at nature. You're gonna quote. Okay, Private Eye's gonna quote Samuel L. Jackson. "Until such a time the world ends, we will act as though it intends to spin on." I mean, that's really good. We're acting and behaving and speaking in such a way where we do believe that the world is going to end. And I'm not saying it wouldn't end. I'm just saying, okay, you guys can't worry about it until it happens. Because actually, if something drastic is really going to happen with our economy, things are going to be fixed. Okay, we're going to fix it. It'll be hard, but we're going to fix it. And answering your question, we really know how to laugh in family in the face of danger. Just today, we reunited for what I believe you think it's barbecue. Interesting. Or BBQ, which is barbecue. Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, Private Eye, because you struggle with probably the material more in a third world country, but I wonder if the psychology is much healthier. I don't know. It's gonna be different for different places, but that's kind of we are under a very heavy psychological strain in America, and it's sad because we have no reason. I mean, I struggle with anxiety, and I know it's illogical. We have no reason to feel the way we feel because we have it so good. We have hot water, just wait a couple seconds out of the faucet, unless you need, propane tank or whatever, or get your water heater fixed or whatever. But yeah, I mean, just we do have it good. Anyway, on that note, I hope that was a white pill stream. I hope that was encouraging to you guys. But I had a lot of fun talking. I'm going to wrap it up because I actually have to go to bed early because I have to get up early. I'm no longer nocturnal. So I really do appreciate you guys joining me this Sunday stream. And we'll get back into Mondays the following week. So not tomorrow, but the following week. So I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in. I always appreciate you. And until I see you next, keep producing, preserving, and promoting the good art you love. And I will say take care.